Good morning, and welcome to the Alameda Connection on KCSM HD2. I'm your host, Scott Piehler. Spend any time on the island of Alameda, and you'll discover a thriving art scene. From public art installations, to murals and great street art, to small galleries and major installations taking advantage of the unique infrastructure of Alameda, as well as the performing arts both on stage and in public places, whatever you enjoy in the world of art, you will find it here in Alameda. On the Alameda Connection, we've already introduced you to such places as Rhythmix Cultural Works, Radium Runway, the people behind the tap-dancing Christmas trees, and the folks on stage at Altarena Playhouse. Today, we turn our attention to an unassuming yellow building at the corner of Peru and Lincoln, the Frank Bette Center for the Arts. The Frank Bette Center features classes in all varieties and disciplines, as well as some amazing displays of local art, as well as hosting two of the biggest arts events of the year, Alameda On Camera and the nationally recognized Plein Air Paintout. My guest today is Margaret Fago, the president and executive director of the Frank Bette Center for the Arts. We'll talk about the fascinating history of the man whose name is on the door, Frank Bette himself, also the many offerings and many exhibits of the Frank Bette Center, as well as Margaret's own story, which is fascinating. It involves watercolors, sailing, and sail making. If you've got an artistic itch you've always wanted to scratch, the Frank Bette Center is the place to do it. Today's guest, Margaret Fago, the president and executive director of the Frank Bette Center for the Arts. That's coming up this morning on the Alameda Connection, right here on KCSM HD2. Good morning, Margaret, and welcome to the Alameda Connection.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Let's talk about the center's namesake as a start. Frank Bette himself, quite the Renaissance man, as I have recently learned.
The center would not be there without Frank. He spent all his life wanting to be an artist, did it at various different levels. When he immigrated from Germany to live with his uncle in Chicago, he went to school at Chicago Institute of Art, and he did sign painting for his uncle. Became a U.S. citizen, and during World War II, he went into the service and worked at a facility down in, I believe it was Georgia, that made propellers for planes.
Oh, wow.
His family in Germany ran a woodworking facility, and so he had learned carpentry and woodworking early on. Some of his later works that he did that he's carved out of wood are I think some of his very best pieces.
I can imagine.
Yeah, so we're lucky enough to have a few of his pieces of artwork
delightful.
at the center.
When was Frank born?
He died in 1999 at the age of 97, 1902, that he was born. After the war, he was living in New Orleans. He was doing portrait work, and he really enjoyed working with people of all races and creeds. He didn't like the way the Black people were being treated in the South, and somebody said, oh, you might like it better in San Francisco. So he moved to San Francisco. He started working for Gump's, doing their furniture repair. He decided he wanted to go on his own, and so someone suggested that he check out Alameda. So he started his own furniture refinishing business in Alameda. He was over on Central Avenue to start with, and then the building that we're in became available for him to rent. So he rented it for a few years, and then the owner said, you know, you might want to just buy this place, which he did. He lived downstairs in the back room, which is now our signature gallery, and worked in the front gallery as his furniture refinishing and rented out the apartment that was upstairs. This building, when it was first built, was a grocery store on the bottom floor and the owner's apartment up above. He had a steady income from the apartment up above. He didn't mind being tucked into the little space at the back. He got known, you know, as someone who did quality furniture refinishing. In the later years of his life, he decided that he really wanted to get back to doing more of his artwork and started getting involved with doing life drawing, going out with friends to do plein air painting. He started writing. He wrote a whole series of books on poetry and a couple of books about his artwork. Some friends of his helped publish those. He never got married, never had any kids, didn't really want to leave his building building to one of his nephews.
Okay.
I think this should become an art center. He talked one of his friends into taking up the wand, if you might say. And she became the first executive director. So it took him a couple of years to actually do the work that needed to be done to have it a public space.
Mm-hmm.
So in 2002, they got their nonprofit and opened up as an art center. She was the executive director for 1 year, maybe 2, and then she hired Deborah Owen to become the executive director. But Frank's money, what he had, ran out about then. It had to become an all-volunteer organization, so we no longer had a paid director. We've got quite a lot of Frank's work, and he did a lot of different paintings. His books were quite interesting, and he was a creative soul, and you can sort of feel his soul in the place.
Do we still have his books?
Yes, we do still have his books.
My late stepfather was a truck driver, courier, and a woodworker. He was the one that first taught me that craftsmanship elevated to a certain point becomes art.
Good craftsmanship truly is art. If it's no longer useful, does that make it art?
I think it was the great animator Chuck Jones who said animation was a great example of a craft that became an art. I adore the motto, a place for meetings, readings, showings, and other creative doings.
And we've had various people say, oh, you should update that motto. And it's like, no, this is Frank. It has that little old world sense to it.
As we know it, the center you said was 2002.
2002 when it officially started, yes.
TripAdvisor actually lists you as one of the top 25 things to do in Alameda. Obviously, to be on TripAdvisor, you're not just pulling from an Alameda audience. What's the draw?
We're an interesting art gallery. We have rotating art exhibits that change every 2 months, some of them every month. We put on an event every year that draws artists from around the country to come here and paint in Alameda. And during that week, people can watch them painting outdoors and then come down and see everything that they've done at a big show that we put on down at the South Shore Shopping Center, the Frank Bette Plein Air Paintout. It happens on the last week of July, and the first weekend in August will be the show. We're collecting artists right now for it. They've got until April 5th to apply.
How many slots are there in that?
We have 40 slots that we take. We generally get between 50 and 60 people applying, and we get people from all over the country coming. Some people who have become quite famous afterwards,
really,
which is sort of nice to say.
That's amazing.
They started with us. We're getting known as one of the ones fun to come to because Alameda has a lot of interesting things for people to see and interesting things for people to paint. The community opens up their homes for out-of-town artists.
That's nice.
Which makes it affordable for artists to come and stay here.
Let's shift to you. How long have you been president and executive director?
I started volunteering at the center in 2005. Maybe about 2011, I became president. I've been doing it for a while.
Your resume is a fascinating one. Sailing, sail making, watercolors. So what's your life path that led you here?
Following the water, I guess. I have to blame my mother for a lot of where I'm at. My mother was also a sailor and an artist. When I graduated from college, I met a fellow that was working as a boat builder here in Alameda. I met him because I was on the sailing team at UC Davis.
Okay.
So anyway, I moved to Alameda because that's where he was. And I was looking for a job until I went back to get a teaching credential. Got a job at a place called Johnson & Joseph Sailmakers. It's no longer in business. While I was there, one of the other people and they were about ready to close the place down. And we were going, well, we still want to do sailmaking, you know? So we decided to go into partnerships, he and his wife and I.
Okay.
And we started Hogan Sails. And we found a space over at Alameda Marina in one of the old buildings that was part of the World War II shipbuilding. And so we had this beautiful upstairs space that you could lay out sails on. And so for 25 years, I worked as a sailmaker and never went back for that teaching credential. But I've always done art. As soon as I could pick up a pencil, I was probably drawing. As soon as I could hold a paintbrush, I was painting, encouraged by the family. When I decided that it was time to retire from sailmaking because it's pretty physical, I started doing my artwork a little more seriously. And so when I retired from that, I happened to be walking down Lincoln Avenue and went, oh, there's a gallery that started here. Should I poke my nose in? And I was walking with my husband. He says, yeah, go ahead, go on in. And hey, I've been volunteering ever since.
You are also on a race committee for a local yacht club. Because my wife is a sailor, I have to ask, which yacht club?
Encinal Yacht Club.
Okay. Back to the center. Y'all are busy. What is the process of deciding what the exhibit calendar is going to look like?
We've pretty much decided, over the years, it's sort of fallen into this thing that we would have a new exhibit every 2 months.
Okay.
But we wanted to have an event happening every month. Main gallery changes every 2 months with a group show that anyone can enter. And the signature gallery is available for members to have a solo show or a duo show, or in some cases, a small group. And that changes every month. And then we have our 2 big signature events, which is the Alameda On Camera, where we invite photographer artists to take photos at the end of February and then put on a show. And that is a really big show, so we use the entire gallery for showing that. And then our Plein Air Paintout, which happens in the last week of July, we also have the show for that. The gallery show afterwards takes up the entire gallery. That's sort of the schedule. And then the themes on it, the gallery director and me and maybe one other person, we get together and we start throwing out ideas for what the themes might be. And in June, our next one will be Illusions.
As we're recording this and as this airs, kind of smack in the middle of Alameda On Camera, how did that come about?
This got started when Deborah Owen was still our director, and we were looking for something to happen in February, which was our slowest month. People got talking about it, and at that time, my husband and I were part of the Alameda Photographic Society, and they had been doing these mystery field trips where the person who was in charge of it would decide somewhere where everybody was going to go, but they wouldn't tell them where it was. And you all met at a parking lot and then went to it, and you were given a list of ideas of things that you might take pictures of. Something red, something round, something alive, something dead. It would be a weird list of things. They had been doing that. And so we were throwing out ideas to do during February. And somebody else said, well, Seattle's been doing this thing where they take the Seattle map and they throw a grid on it and they assign artists to different places to take pictures. And so between those 2 ideas, they started Alameda On Camera. So the way that works is that we select 48 photographers. On the launch night, we have a basket with numbers in it that are assigned to different sections of the island. And instead of just throwing a straight grid on it, we decided that we would maybe change the sizes of them depending on how many things of interest that might be in that spot. So you pull your piece out, you have 48 hours to go take pictures, and then you're to turn in a proof sheet of some of the photos that you think you might use for your final piece. And we were encouraging people to be as creative as they wish. They can either present it as a straightforward, traditional photography, black and white or color framed beautiful piece, or they can do Photoshop on it. They can turn it into a quilt. They can make beads out of it. They can make an umbrella out of it.
I heard somebody did a shower curtain.
Somebody did a shower curtain one time. Yes, they did indeed. The other one that was really a whole lot of fun did a UFO out of it, an alien landing. And so there was this suitcase with all these things that had been found from the alien landing.
Oh, delightful.
So that was fun.
There is a youth division in there, is there?
There is.
And how many youth? Is it 48 youth as well? Or?
Well, as many as we can get.
They
have a $5 entry fee, and there's no jurying for them. So we want to get as many as we can. We've been getting between 10 and 12 each time. We'd love to get even more.
It reminds me that this whole contest is a great way to teach one of my favorite adages/jokes, which is, what is the difference between a professional and an amateur photographer?
How easy it is to cover your mistakes.
No, the answer is the amateur shows you all their photos.
Oh, my husband would love that one. Yes, he calls it a photo dump.
Yes, exactly. What about Alameda On Camera has surprised you?
Some people have come up with some very creative ideas that I really loved. I think one of the ones that I was not expecting, but I thought was very effective, is that 2 photographers who had pieces side by side took pictures into each other's space. You have to keep your feet on your space. And then they created a piece that was both of their stuff. So it was this great big long piece. It was out on the base. So they also then pulled in old-timey pictures of sailors and things like that they stuck in there as well. And it was a really cool piece. Yeah, it was a really
sounds
cool
like
piece.
Fun. What is the schedule for the showing of the end result?
They've already taken their photos, and so now they're working on their stuff. The exhibit will be April and May. They turn in their work the last weekend of March, and then we'll be putting the show together. It will open the first Friday of April, and will run through the end of May.
So we talked briefly about the Plein Air. When does that exhibit happen?
It happens right afterwards.
Okay.
So then it's August, September.
What is a comment or a compliment that you've received either from an exhibitor or a visitor online, whatever, that just kind of keeps you warm at night about what you're doing here?
Probably from some of the plein air artists saying that it's one of the best events that they go to in the United States.
That reminds me of my favorite compliment from my time as a theater director, which was a woman who had been doing community theater for 30 or 40 years. Came in and she was in my production of Our Town, and she said, "This is the best experience I've ever had." I said, "Why?" "Because there's no backstage drama." I'm like, "It's an extracurricular activity. If you're not enjoying it, we're doing something wrong."
Yeah. And so don't be screaming at each other.
What is it that keeps you doing what you're doing? Because this is not easy.
Well, and it's all, as I tell the other volunteers, the only thing that I can give you is compliments. It's knowing that the community is behind us, that, when we were having a little period of hard times, having people step up and say, "Hey, what can I do to help to bring you through this?" People coming in and saying, "No, I found this place. This is really cool." We have one patron who is wanting to promote arts and especially cultural exchange between areas. So having him come in and say, "Hey, I want to put some money into this." And so he gave us the money to purchase a statue of Amelia Earhart, which is over at the Amelia Earhart Elementary School.
Wonderful.
His name is Dick Davis. Thank you, Dick, if you hear this. But he's also given money to promote artistic exchange between Mexico and the United States, which has been really a very interesting experience for us.
Wonderful.
So, we've had their artists come and bring work up to us, and we've sent our artists down there to paint in some of the small towns down there. And so it's been really cool.
How did Frank Bette deal with pandemic? And how long were you closed? What happened there?
My niece Andrea, she does film work and podcasting. She told me how we could do some YouTube videos of artwork.
Okay.
And so we did a series of asking artists to do demonstrations once a month. And so that was one of the things to engage. And then my watercolor classes that I teach, I was able to do them online. We were totally closed for a year. And then we were able to get some grant money to help pay our basic expenses, which helped a whole lot. And so being able to keep some of that stuff going kept us in the radar of what was happening. Our Plein Air Paintout, we had it, but we had each of the artists paint in their own hometown.
Okay.
And then join on Zoom and share what they did.
Oh, wonderful.
And we put up an exhibit of their work on our website.
Fantastic.
So those were some things we were able to do to just keep it going.
Very good. Do you have a favorite subject matter to paint?
When I get a chance, water is my favorite, very favorite subject.
Okay.
But I'm liking a lot of other things as well. So yeah, I started, as a sailmaker, I started thinking, well, I'm going to make my living doing marine painting.
Right.
And so if you look at my website, you'll see a lot of boat paintings on there. But then I've gotten into doing a lot of other things, especially now that I'm teaching. Water is particularly difficult for a beginner.
Oh, certainly.
Because it moves, it changes, it's not the same all the time. And that's what I love about it.
Do you have a favorite place to sail?
Well, I've always liked sailing on the bay.
Okay.
But I grew up in Northern California and I learned to sail on Whiskeytown Lake. Darn, I like sailing up there too. Really, the most fun sort of sailing trip is I have relatives in New Zealand.
Oh.
And some of them are into sailing. And so I got to do a week of sailing with my aunt and uncle on their boat in the islands in New Zealand.
Oh, delightful.
Bay of Islands. So
that's fantastic.
Yeah, so that was really wonderful.
Now, we've talked a lot about exhibits, but Frank Bette has a lot of classes.
That's correct.
So we talk about some of those offerings, those class offerings.
Well, I'm teaching the watercolor class, obviously, but we also have drawing classes. We've been doing some fun ones on card making. It looks like we might have a paper flower making workshop coming up. We did a 2-day class a few years ago on making paper mache birds, which was sort of fun. We are looking for someone else to help run our classes program because the woman who's been doing it for 20 years is finally saying, I need to retire. It is a volunteer position. So we're trying to get some new things in as well.
It must be interesting, especially now where everything's online, everybody can look at everything else. How do you address what Teddy Roosevelt said, that comparison is the thief of joy? The idea that that person looks at it and goes, well, I'm not Monet, so I'm not even going to try. How do you address that to a student? Say, no, pick up the brush, try.
Well, at least in my classes, I emphasize the fact that process is more important than the final product. And that whole process of working with art and being around other artists is good for our well-being, good for our happiness factor. And the more you do it, the better it's going to be. But don't expect to be Monet right away because he wasn't either.
Right. I had a good friend of mine who was a podcaster and other things. He liked to remind me, he says, your first whatever is going to be terrible.
Right.
So get through it and get through
Get through it. Accept the fact that it's just, and watercolor is one of those things that you have to accept the fact that it's watercolor and it's in charge and you have to learn how it does its thing. And once you do, you can make it do lots of things, but it's in charge.
What are the rewards and challenges of being a small art gallery in Alameda, California?
Probably the reward is knowing that we are a place for creative doings. And it's a place where people can come and enjoy artistic things and share that. Probably the challenges are keeping enough volunteers who are willing to sit in a somewhat quiet gallery and keep the doors open just so people can come in. I mean, if we don't have the doors open, nobody's going to come by. Sometimes it's very busy and sometimes it's pretty quiet, but just keeping people who are willing to be engaged and be there. And that's probably our biggest challenge since we're an all volunteer run organization.
How is the center funded?
The center is funded through donations, through our classes, and through occasional grants. And we also have 2 artist studio spaces that we rent out. Classes are probably a third, donations are another third, and renting out those 2 galleries, studio spaces are the other third of our monthly income.
Are you seeing any up or down trends in membership these days?
Our membership has gone up a whole lot since pandemic.
Has it?
Yes, it has, which has been great.
Who is your member?
I would say that the majority of our members are someone who has either recently retired and wants to take up artistic endeavors again, or who has been taking a break from work for whatever reason, whether it's their choice or not. And then probably the third member would be people who have always wanted to do art and are making sure that they're making time for it.
How can people best help the Frank Bette Center?
There's probably 2 ways, maybe 3 ways that people can help the Frank Bette Center. One is actually to come down and volunteer to help keep the gallery open or help with one of our receptions. There's occasional other jobs that, we need somebody to help with. We've got a gentleman who comes down once a month and cleans our yard, which is just wonderful. It's a little small thing, but hey, it's a big thing. The other is we live on donations. And so the donations help pay our daily expenses, our insurance, our utilities, we unfortunately have a mortgage on the building. That's something else. The other is to pass the word and bring your friends. Come by and see it. Enjoy it. Come share it. Because that's what makes it worthwhile for us, is to have people to come and enjoy it and share it.
It really is a wonderfully peaceful space. I do quite enjoy it. What artists inspire you?
I went to see the exhibit over at the Legion of Honor, the Manet exhibit. All of the Impressionists I find very inspiring. And, some of the women finally were able to get recognized for the work that they were doing during that period. I really love that. There's a lot of watercolor artists out there that I've followed. One of our plein air artists, Barbara Tapp, she's been doing watercolor plein air work for quite a lot of years. And she puts up a lot of stuff on Facebook. She's good.
What is it about her work that speaks to you?
The feeling that you can sort of step into it. So she does a lot of landscape type work, urban scenes, but it just sort of feeling like, she's really there.
What is the Frank Bette Center elevator pitch to someone in the greater Bay Area as to why you should hop the ferry and come on over and say hi?
Well, where else can you find a smaller gallery in a wonderful Victorian building that has wonderfully changing exhibits? Local artists are showing, but good local artists. I mean, it's just not, anything.
So here's the question I warned you about, and I warned all my guests about. You've got company coming in from out of town. You have to take them to 3 meals in Alameda. It could be 3 meals in one day. It could be 3 dinners. Something could be little noshes and bites. So where are you going for those 3?
Well, if I wanted to take them somewhere and impress them, I would take them to Trabuco down at South Shore.
Okay.
They're one of my friends, my husband's friends, who sort of like the bar type thing. I take them to the 1400 Club down on Central Avenue. And if they wanted really good, authentic Mexican street food, I'd take them to El Caballo Wraps down on Lincoln Avenue.
I live far too close to El Caballo. I know exactly where you're saying.
We go there at least once a week. And then the 1400 Club is the other one we go to a lot.
I love it. We've talked about Alameda On Camera. We've talked about Plein Air Paintout. Are there any other events coming up that people should put on their radar?
Yes, actually there is. We're doing a little preliminary to the Plein Air Paintout at the end of the month. On the 28th of March, we're going to have what we call a wet paint day. We're inviting artists, no pre-registration required.
Okay.
To come and paint from a clothed model or go out and paint outdoors in the morning on that day and then gather back at 1 o'clock to share work and have it up for sale for an hour or two.
Wonderful.
So it's just a casual sort of get together, enjoy painting. It's going to be in the room where the Alameda Art Association had a gallery for a number of years and unfortunately have had to give it up. So it's right next to C's Candies down at South Shore.
Yep.
So it should be a fun event. This will be the 3rd year we did it. It's actually in honor of a nationally known artist that lived and worked here in Alameda who passed away 3 years ago, Nancy Seaman Crookston. Any money that we raise that day will go toward an award in her name at the Alameda Plein Air Paintout in July.
Website, socials, ways people can keep up with what's going on at Frank Bette.
We have a website, and we try and keep it as up-to-date as possible. We also have a Facebook. We actually have 2 Facebooks. We have one that's our general Facebook, and we have another one for the Plein Air Paintout. And then we have an Instagram account.
Margaret Fago, President and Executive Director of the Frank Bette Center. Thank you so much for coming and sharing us. This has been an absolute delight.
Thank you for having me.
And take care. Thanks again to Margaret Fago, President and Executive Director of the Frank Bette Center for the Arts. You can find the Frank Bette Center at 1601 Peru Street. That's right at the intersection with Lincoln Avenue. They're open Friday through Sunday. Their hours are 11 a.m. until 5 p.m. You can find them online at frankbettecenter.org. That's FrankBetteCenter.org. Remember that spelling of Frank Bette because it's a useful way to find them elsewhere on social media. Their Instagram is Frank_BETTE_center. You can also find them on YouTube. The easiest way, simply search for Frank Bette Center. Their actual YouTube handle is Frank Bette Center for the Arts 7931. As Margaret mentioned, they do have 2 Facebook pages. The general Facebook page, just look for Frank Bette Center, and the page dedicated to the Plein Air Paintout. Just search Plein Air Paintout Frank Bette. You spell Plein, P-L-E-I-N. There are 2 big events coming up at the Frank Bette Center. First up, Alameda On Camera will be on display from April 3rd through May 30th. And the final results of the Plein Air Paintout go on display August 7th and will be there through September 26th. Coming up next Sunday on the Alameda Connection, my guest will be Jonathan DeLong, co-founder and executive director of the REAP Climate Center. REAP stands for Regeneration, Education, Aquaculture, and Permaculture. REAP is dedicated to the rather radical concept of nature as infrastructure. In their main mission, they serve as a jobs training center for potentially lucrative careers in green-facing industries. That's Jonathan DeLong, Executive Director and co-founder of the REAP Climate Center, next Sunday at 8 a.m. on the Alameda Connection. As always, if you have a suggestion for a future guest on the Alameda Connection, please feel free to drop me an email. That email address is alamedaconnection@gmail.com. You can follow the show on Instagram. Best way to keep up to date, just search Alameda Connection. And if you've missed any past episodes, we have them all the way back to the very first episode. That's on my YouTube channel. Again, search Alameda Connection. Thanks to the California Historical Radio Society for providing our interview location for this week's conversation with Margaret Fago of the Frank Bette Center. And thanks to guitarist Bill Hart. He provides our theme music. The song is called Beachside Isle, and it's from his album Watch the Sky. I'm Scott Piehler. I'll catch you next week, Sunday morning at 8, the Alameda Connection on KCSM HD2.